Hello friends, welcome back to the Craft Castle. It is the month of January, so that means that the entire month is going to be filled with a whole bunch of Valentine's Day themed projects. And to start, we are going to learn how to make a Valentine's Day hoodie using just that decal that you see over there. I've already designed it. We're going to create the same exact thing and it's going to be super easy. I know those wavy sweatshirts and t-shirts are super popular right now, and I'm sure you can buy all the SVGs for it, but let's create our own and make our own. So I picked up this hoodie at Old Navy for like $8 on clearance, super cheap. But I also already have my HTV pulled, and today I'm going to be using Polytape's HTV. This pink I love so much. It's like a pearly pink. And then I'm going to be using like a burgundy wine color and then just a little scrap of white just for that very bottom Valentine's Day. All right, y'all, let's get started. Okay, so this is going to be what our finished design is going to look like. I'm going to bring this over to the side just so we know what we're working with. First things first, let's cover the real basics about curving text. Curving texts really only look good in bold capital letters. Don't try and curve a text with script or cursive fonts because it just doesn't look right. And there's a lot of heights and lows, right? When you're doing a cursive, you have a lot of wisps and stuff like that. When you go and curve a font, it just does not look good. So you're gonna wanna find a bold, thick, all capital type of font that you could use to curve text so they look really good. Today, what I'm using is a downloaded font. It will be linked in the description of this video, so you can just click on it and download it into Design Space. If you do not know how to do all of that, I already have a video posted that shows you exactly how to download fonts. It's super easy. So I'm going to be using a downloaded font called Groovy, and I'm just going to make this really big so we can see what we're doing. And I'm just going to start with the top, just that top one, and we're going to do Be Mine. This is not the font that we're using. So I'm going to go over here into the font box and system. And I'm going to put in Groovy. Okay, there it is. Click on it. And then we're just going to make it smaller just so it doesn't obstruct this thing right here. We'll slide this over just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to turn this to black. And then what you want to do is you want to zoom in. We're about ready to take a screenshot. Let's make this just a little bit smaller. The bigger the screenshot, the better. And you want to really make sure that the full text box is inside your screenshot. So I'm just going to make this just a little bit smaller, but it is going to be a really big screenshot. Okay, what I'm saying about a really big screenshot is you see how this right here is mostly in the working space because we're about ready to take a screenshot. If we go back out, see how it gets smaller? And if it's like super small like that, if you screenshot this, you're not going to have a good trace on that. You never do. So the trick with that is you want to make it gigantic and you want it to fill in this workspace. The bigger, the better. So you see how there's not a whole lot room left over here. We don't want any of this stuff on the other sides. You just want this plain white background with the black. We can keep these little circles on the very top because I'm going to get rid of them in a little bit. Okay, so you're going to want to take a screenshot of just the Be Mine. For the MacBooks, it's Command Shift and 4. This little arrow aimbot tool thing pops up. And all you're going to want to do is take your tool and draw a box around the Be Mine, making sure that you're getting A, all of Be Mine, but B, nothing else. Like we don't want to go over here and we don't want to go to the very left. So we're going to just draw a box. And we're going to let this go to wherever it saves. For me, it's going to save on the desktop of my computer. Okay, we're going to minimize this, and then you're going to open up a new window of Safari. In the description of this video, there is going to be this website. It is called Font Meme, and it is their Wavy effect. The reason why I'm not using Design Space curve feature for this is because sometimes when you use that curve feature in Design Space, it like distorts and weirdly spaces out the letters and it just doesn't look good. I mean, it's doable and you can totally do it, and it takes some time to like readjust every single letter, But like, why take a whole bunch of time when you can just do it real easy here? Okay, you're gonna come over here to upload an image, find your image and add it in. It was quick. Okay, there are gonna be all these presets. You can also edit your presets. I've never used the edits. I mean, I've tried it out, I've tested it out and I didn't really care for it. I feel like their presets that they have are already great. And then all you wanna do is press generate. It's okay if you don't know which one you wanna choose. So here's one and you can go to preset B. Oh, there it goes. And then C might take a second to load up. There is D. And then you also could go into custom. And again, I've tested it out and I didn't really care for it. Okay, so just find whatever wave fits you the best, whatever speaks to you the most. I actually like the preset A where there is like just one little wave. We don't need it too crazy. Okay, when you're done and you have figured out which one you want, hover over it and we're gonna right click and we're gonna save image to downloads. Or you could save this to your desktop, whatever. I like to put all of my downloads in my downloads folder. Okay, then going back into your original design space that you have, we can just delete this or you can move it down at the bottom if you wanted to change the lettering later. I'm gonna come over here into uploads, upload image, and I'm gonna find my download that I just did and I'm gonna drop it in. Go into complex, move this over and press continue. Now, when you put it into design space, you're gonna get this white background. There's two ways to go about doing this. You can go over here into remove background and it will automatically remove it all for you. Now, the issue with that, sometimes it's an issue, is if you don't want like this to be cut out. So if we zoom in, everything that's white, it's going to remove because it's going to think it's a background. So if you don't want to do that, all you need to do is go back. I'm going to come over here into select and I'm going to go down to the more options, scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to bump this color threshold up just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And all I'm going to do is now I'm going to click the white. The sections of the white that you don't want, like if you upload it with just the white background, all you're going to get is like one box. But if we click on the white and then we do the circles in the B, do you see how now you can have that checkered mark? But if we zoom in, these right here are still white. That's exactly what we want. So when you cut this out, it's going to say BEMINE. And then we'll click apply. And this is what your finished SVG file will look like, which will be to the left. We could keep it a print and cut image if you wanted to, but since it's not like a picture of a face or like a character or something like that, you really necessarily don't need it. It's just one simple color. So we'll click that Be Mine. And then I'm just gonna rename this and add it to uploads. Once you're done, add to canvas. Okay, now that it's added into your canvas, we're gonna make sure that this right here is in the lock position. You don't want to distort your text here. And I'm just gonna make it smaller just so it fits my screen a little bit. We can resize this later at the very end. Now, for me, I'm gonna wanna do 3 of the same Be Mines. So I want 1 and then Command D, duplicate. So there is our second one. And then there is our third one. So we have 3 duplicates. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm going to readjust these. Oops, where's that one? To where there's just a little bit spaced out. Don't worry about the spacing just yet. Just to making sure everything's even. You just want to make sure that the spacing that you have is kind of what you want it to look like. So we got all 3. I like the spacing of that. So here we're going to take all 3, select all 3, go up into align. We're going to align horizontally, but then we're also going to press align again, and we're going to distribute this vertically, which means that it's going to make sure that the spacing in between all 3 of those boxes are completely even. So if we had something like this, when I originally set this up, it looked like it was all even, right? If we select all 3 and we go into align and then we do distribute vertically, you see how that middle box now dropped down and there's even spacing throughout. It's exactly what you're wanting. Okay, now that you have that, all you want to do is add in this Valentine. So add in another text box and then make sure the caps lock's off and then put in Valentine. When I have that done, I'm going to just drag this over here and I'm going to change this text to the Geisty font that I'm using. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's also another downloaded font. And I'm just going to make this larger. And then I want to add in that little heart. So we'll go over here into shapes and find the heart. I'm going to drag this down into my little area. And I just want to angle it. See how it's like floating away from Valentine. All right. So pretty much you're almost finished with your SVG file. I mean, technically you are. I am going to be using 3 different types of HTV. So I want 3 different colors. So I'm going to change this Be Mine into my pink, because that's my main color. Now for Valentine, it is still technically a text box. If you were to cut this, it will not cut correctly. You'll get like weird lines through the letters because it's not connected. If you are satisfied with the way that you've typed this and it looks great to you, remember to spell check before you do this step. You want to right click, press combine, and then weld. Now when you cut it, it's going to be one single fluid line versus all of these random cuts. Now I am going to be using white for that. So I'm just going to click my white color and then going over here into the red. I'm just going to do a little bit of red. So I'm just going to change my gray heart into red. And that's it. That's your finished file. Now, important note, when we're working with HTV, you always want to mirror. Mirror, mirror, mirror. If you forget to mirror, you will hate yourself at the end when you waste HTV for not cutting. I always like to do this step in the design process because when you go into the make it, especially when you're using multiple colors, because when we go over here into make it, you do have the option to press this mirror button, but if you have multiple layers, you have to remember to do it for all the colors, which to be honest with you is a pain in the butt, and most of the time you end up forgetting. So instead, what I like to do is if I know for sure I'm working with HTV, is I'm going to take my entire image, select all of it, and this is where we can resize too. So when we designed this, we didn't really care about the size. What you're gonna wanna do is get your HTV blank or your sweatshirt blank, and you're gonna wanna set it out, take a ruler and measure out how big you want your decal. The largest width that you can do for the Cricuts is 11.5 inches. It can go really long depending on which machine you have, but you can't go more than 11.5 inches. So I'm gonna keep it at 11.5. When you select all, do not resize these one individually. You want to select all, then come up here and do 11.5. Then press enter. Make sure that this lock is locked in place. Then when you're done doing that, go over here into flip and then flip horizontally. That means that everything just got mirrored. If it's not legible to you, if you're having troubles reading this, this is perfect. You did good, you're on the right track. Now, if you can still read it like this and you're working with HTV, stop what you're doing and just remember to mirror. Y'all, I was working on this really large project last year and I screwed up and I wasted like $200 in HTV because I cut everything and then I go to press. And when I was weeding to press it, I realized, oh my gosh, I forgot to mirror. It was a nightmare. So remember to mirror. The next thing you want to do is like if we take the original and we delete it and we go over here into make it, and you see how in the pink, see how now everything is its own individual thing, and it actually isn't spaced the way that I wanted to. In order to ensure that everything's spaced the way you want, go back into cancel, select only the pink that you have spaced the way you want, and we're gonna select all 3, right click and press attach. That means that it's going to stay where it needs to be. It's not going to move around, readjust, go here, go there. It's just gonna be spaced exactly the way you want it to be spaced. That said, these right here, I'm not really concerned about the spacing too much, so I'm just gonna leave it the way that it is. Then you wanna go into make it and cut these with your HTV. I will show you how to do a super quick and easy press after you get done cutting. Weeding and pressing your sweatshirts or any type of fabric blank is super, super simple. There isn't a whole lot that goes into this, but there are a few tips and tricks that make pressing your HTV onto your fabric blank last a lifetime. So make sure before you start weeding any of your HTV that you turn on your heat press and get it heating up. For sweatshirts, I like to use my portable heat press just because my swing arm heat press If I'm doing hoodies, it tends to get jumbled up into the back of my heat press, and then it ends up having like grease marks at the back. So I always like to use my portable heat press for hoodies, but you could use any heat press that you want. For HTV, what I like to do is I like to cut out any excess. I am a scrap saver when it comes to HTV. So weeding out, it's important when you're working with HTV that you leave what you want on the carrier sheet. So anything that is not what you want to be pressed onto the shirt, you want to weed out or take away. So I'm just going to take a weeding pick, weed this. I like to throw my scraps really far away from my working station because the last thing you want to do is accidentally iron on some scraps to your garment, because then you're going to be stuck with that piece of whatever you didn't want forever. Okay, so there is one finished thing. I'm just going to set this over to the side, and then I'm going to find the heart cutout that's right here. Saving this. Doing the same thing. It's going to be hard to see, but there is like little cut lines in this maroon. You just want to take the corner and peel away anything that you do not want on your sweatshirt. So there is the maroon color. I'm gonna set that on top of the Valentine. Another cool tip and trick for this, with especially working with vinyl HTV, is if you have your heat press already heated up, take your heating mat, take your heat press and warm up your heating mat. This helps with weeding, and it weeds like it breathes. It does not need to be scorching hot, just warm. Lay your HTV shiny side up, so what you're going to be pressing later, and just put that down onto your warm heat mat. Then coming over here, we're just gonna drag. Do you see how easy this peels and weeds? It doesn't need to be super hot, but see how easy that was and super quick? That's why heating up your heat press or your heat mat is great. That said, you don't want it too hot. If you make your pressing mat too hot, it will start to melt all of the glue and then be a mess. Ask me how I know. I've done it before. Okay, so there is our finished Be Mine decal in that pink shimmer. Oh, I think I'm gonna love this sweatshirt. Okay, so I have everything that I want weeded. So I'm gonna scoot over my scraps, taking my blank, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my sweatshirt and fold it in half, shake it out just a little bit, and then I'm gonna take my heat press and I'm going to just press just for a second. I'm gonna press and I'm gonna put a crease in the middle of my sweatshirt. Got that done. I'm gonna open this back up. And you see how I did the back, I ironed the back of my heat press? It's because I wanted to make sure that I got a line in here, but it wasn't like too hard of a line. You don't want that strong of a line, but just enough to where you can see a middle ground here. And I'm sure it is gonna be hard to see. You don't want a really hard line. You just want it to be just a little bit folded so you can tell where the middle is. And if you take this line and you go all the way up, it's actually the hoodie mouth right here is actually off to the right just a little bit. So it's important that you do that middle step. Taking your heat press mat, putting it underneath. Okay, here is the line that's right here. I'm going to take my decal and I'm going to fold this in half. When you get it folded, just take and crease the plastic carrier sheet of your HTV. You don't want to really do the HTV because then you'll have a crease in it when you go to iron it on. And it's gonna be hard to tell, but there is a crease right here at the top of my carrier sheet and then one at the bottom. We're gonna line this up with the center line right here. I always like to do 2 or 3 fingers down. So there is my center and there is my center. Just to double check my work, because gosh, you never would want to ruin a blank, is I like to take a ruler and I like to go in, and it's about 3.5, coming over here, 3.5. So this is lined up perfectly. And then because I have a little bit of extra space right here, I'm just gonna slide this underneath. Oop, let me trim up the carrier sheet just a little bit so we can do this all in one press. You don't have to do multiple. Now, if we are layering on top of this with different colors, you cannot do this. But because their 3 colors are technically not touching after the final press, I'm just gonna trim up the carrier sheet really tight and slide this up there. Okay, so you can see right here, and it might be hard to see, but the carrier sheet does not touch the underneath of this pink, this is exactly how you want it to look. If the carrier sheet is underneath your bottom layer or the pink layer, then you want to continue trimming or pull it down just a little bit. So if you iron this on, you're gonna ruin the decal because that carrier sheet's gonna be underneath and it won't get onto the blank. Okay, so the same thing we're doing with this. I am just going to trim it up just a little bit. See how that's nice and tight on the left of that heart? I'm gonna lift this up and I'm just going to place this down to where this is its own, this is all its own, and then all of this. Now, all you want to do is make sure your heat press is still heated up, and we're going to press this, okay? When you got it put on there, tacked on there pretty good. I don't do a full press on this. I generally just do a nice and easy press for the very first press. Peel it all off. It's okay if some of the HTV is peeling off at this point because we're about ready to do a better press with it. If you have a silicone pressing mat for your heat press, you could use that. I am just gonna use a little bit of parchment paper, place it down on there, and then do one final good press using firm pressure. Okay, then when you're done, just pull that away, and there you have it, your finished t-shirt. If you are using a red garment like this, and you see, I'm sure you can see, but there is like a rectangle here. It is okay, it will go away. Don't freak out. For some reason, when it heats up, it does get a little discolored, but when it goes back to normal temperature, it will be perfectly fine. When it comes to Polytape HTV, make sure and wait a full 24 hours before you wash the garment. It is machine washable, but you just wanna make sure that it's completely glued on tight and it's not gonna go anywhere for years. All right, y'all, I sure hope I inspired you to make, and I will see you later.